Jason Inouye here, Ohana Fitness, video cast number 3. I'm here with Wendi.
Hi.
Wendi, can you give yourself a brief introduction to everybody watching?
Okay, hey, so I'm Wendi Sudhakar, and I am the founder and CEO of Kudarat, Kudarat actually is a Hindi word that means nature, so it is a all-natural, organic, vegan, gluten-free skincare company.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. Yes.
So tell me more about this company, the name, where did the name come from?
Okay, so when I was researching products and thinking about starting the company, I wanted to find a word that really kind of conveyed what we're about, which is nature and getting back to nature and that whole connection. And it seemed like every good English word was taken.
Yeah.
And so I started looking up Sanskrit words, and this word came up, Kudarat, and literally means nature. And I thought, what a beautiful way to kind of, in a single word, describe what the brand is about.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great way to go, because I think the name has a nice flow to it, and it does exemplify what you're trying to accomplish, right? And when did you start this business?
Officially, I started it last January, so
Okay.
we've only been in business about a year. But while I was still in my career as a geologist, I would spend hours at night and on weekends doing all the research necessary to actually get to the point of starting a company, and that was over several years.
So that's really interesting, because you have a science background, but it's in geology.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of education, right? I know that you
Yeah.
in that field, and somehow you use that to figure out how to make this skincare line, right?
Yeah, so being a geologist, it's like you're given a puzzle, but you're only given some of the pieces, and you have to go find the other pieces, and you may not even know where to go look. And so that really helped me develop the scientific method required to actually get to the answers that I was looking for in terms of what we're putting on our bodies, what ingredients are good for us, what ingredients are not good for us, and literally did all of this intensive research. And then by trial and error, just started building formulas from that. And it was a long, drawn out process, but in the end, it's been worth it.
So that's so interesting, because we're talking about a skincare product that kind of runs along the lines of, if you're a chemist,
Yeah.
right? But you took kind of your scientific background and said, how do I almost reverse engineer this,
Yep.
right?
And
To make something?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I did. I mean, I had all these autoimmune diseases for years. I had cancer, all this stuff, and even when I changed my diet, I still wasn't getting better, and I realized, okay, there's a piece of this puzzle missing. What is it? And that's when I was like, okay, it's literally, I'm still getting toxic exposure from what I'm putting on my face, body, whatever, shampoo, everything. And so I did. I went to some of the main retailers that carry beauty products and took pictures of every product and every label and researched every single ingredient. And then said, okay, what plant can I use that has the same function but is actually natural and works with you and won't kill you or make you sick? And yeah, so it was kind of a reverse engineering process, and I had to learn how to build formulas from scratch. And it's sort of like learning how to bake a cake. It's a recipe.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
And you know, you might be able to bake a cake, but it won't turn out right if you don't have everything just right. And so it was a trial and error, a couple of kitchen fires, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at least your house didn't burn down,
No.
right? You're still saying, But this was born out of a need for a product for yourself, essentially, right? So you were looking for something for yourself that would mitigate your exposure to harmful chemicals.
Yes.
And so you've basically created something that's all natural,
Yes.
that is kind of first to market in a sense,
Yeah,
right?
kind of.
And what makes it unique?
I would say what makes it unique is that it is completely grain-free. There are no grain derivatives of any kind. And like, for example, when you go to the store and you pick up a bottle of lotion or a bottle of moisturizer for your face, there's going to be a bunch of ingredients on it. Some of them you might recognize, like vitamin C or vitamin E.
Mm-hmm.
That vitamin C is not coming from an orange. It's probably coming from corn or wheat, which are known to cause massive problems in a lot of people. And so what I wanted to do was to find products that worked for me, that I wasn't going to continue to keep getting this toxic overload from it. And I was really unhappy with what was out there. Even the products that are gluten-free certified aren't really gluten-free. There's a lot of hidden gluten in products, and people just don't know it. And so part of the process was educating myself on what is what, and because I couldn't find anything that I felt was completely clean and going to work for me, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to just start making this stuff for myself. And I started seeing results, and people literally asked me, my mother asked me if I had a facelift. I'm like, no, I'm a little young for that. But she's like, what are you using? And I told her, and so it kind of snowballed from there, and people wanted to start using the products. And so I'm like, okay, this will be a really good thing to, number one, start educating people on things going on and how to make better choices, and then also provide products that are going to help them in the long run.
Yeah, I think the education piece of what you're saying, because I don't think people realize sometimes what's in those products, and gluten. Gluten's been a hot topic a lot,
really
in the last few years, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying that gluten ties back to a lot of issues that people are having, but I don't think people realize that it was. I had no idea that it was in skincare products.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. Most mainstream skincare products are full of fillers, and gluten is one of the biggest main ingredients, along with other nasty ingredients like mineral oil and sulfates and phthalates, all that nasty stuff. But one of the things I found out just because of my own health journey, I started out with endometriosis and ovarian cancer in my 20s, and then spent 20 years with a whole battery of autoimmune diseases. I had autoimmune liver failure, all this crazy stuff happened. And I thought, okay, what is the connection? And finally found a doctor here that he's a functional medicine doctor, and happens to be pretty much the world's foremost expert on gluten. I didn't know much about it either, but he said, this is what's wrong with you. But even after changing my diet and going to a paleo diet, grain-free, no dairy, no nothing for 2 years, I still didn't get better. In fact, that's when my liver failed. And so I was like, what is the missing piece? And he is a dietitian expert, a dietary expert, but he was not familiar with the absorption of gluten through your skin.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, gluten is too large to be absorbed, so it's not a problem. Well, yeah, if I put an ear of corn on my arm, I'm not going to absorb it. But all these ingredients, in your products are microencapsulated.
Sure.
They're meant to be absorbed.
Sure.
It's not. It's derivatives of those, but it still contains the gluten. And so what I learned from him is gluten is literally the only scientifically proven and medically agreed upon and proven cause of all these autoimmune diseases. And so that is the missing link. And so there's literally 50 million people in this country with autoimmune disease, and none of them understand where it's coming from and how to get rid of it. And I've myself received a lot of negative backlash because you can't cure lupus, you can't cure this, you can't cure that. I'm living proof that you can. Your body is meant to heal itself, but you have to take away what is continuing to keep you sick.
Right, you have to give yourself a chance, right?
Yes. And the healing process, most people are really impatient. The healing process can take 3 to 5 years because you're undoing a lot of damage.
Sure. It's just like what we do here, right? People didn't get overweight or unhealthy overnight. It takes time for your body to recover and restore some of the normal biochemical processes that it needs to get back to, right? I think people don't realize that sometimes. Your baseline might be here, and then over time, because you're hit with so many things, right? Chemicals in our environment, like you start to fall off. Well, it takes time to come back. You can't just rebound off the ground and shoot back up and be fine overnight, right? There's no magic pill for anything.
No, there's not.
So this was really born out of necessity for yourself, and then
was.
You had to create something because you were feeling so bad, even though what you were ingesting was different. And I think that I don't think you're alone there. So we see products coming out nowadays for women like deodorant, skincare products, everything, right?
Yeah.
Even toothpaste. I think people are becoming more educated, and you're helping with that with your product line and just being out there. So how did you get this whole thing off the ground? Because it sounds like you made it for yourself to start. Like, that's really small. I can make stuff for myself, but now you're launching this company and you're going global. Yeah. So how did you take it from just you to making this thing happen?
It's kind of been an interesting process. It's kind of like taking a life of its own, because when I first started this, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I will say this, you have to be unafraid to fail, because from every failure you learn something very valuable. And so I would say the whole first year there were some successes, but there were a lot of stumbling blocks along the way. But I've learned so much about that since then. And so the company is really now, I feel like, headed in the right direction. And the other thing is that the beauty market is highly, highly saturated. Yeah. So you might have the most beautiful tree in the world, but if you're in a forest of millions of trees, you're not necessarily going to be able to see that tree.
Right.
And so a big part of it is just educating, getting the word out, and connecting with people. Because when they connect with you and the brand, that's when the business really takes off. And so it takes a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance. It takes a lot of marketing, and I will say the biggest thing that's happened is I now have 3 business partners, and they're incredible, and it's really taken things to a whole new level. But sometimes you have to fall on your face to really know who is going to be the best person to work with you and to build a really good team. And so, I mean, that's really been a lot of it.
That's true. How do you feel in the pieces, right? Because you can be really good at one thing and not good at all these other things. Right? So how can you find people that are really good at these pieces that you can work well with, right? That personality-wise and that have the same vision, or can be on board with the vision that you have?
Well, I'll say I actually learned who would be the best people to work with me from people that weren't the right people. So, for example, the first web developer I hired and the second web developer I hired were absolute train wreck disasters, and I paid a lot of money and got an unusable product. So, even though that was very painful and expensive to go through, I learned what I needed to look for and the criteria. And so now I have an amazing website, but it took going through that process. And the same thing with marketing and PR and all of that. The original people I worked with were basically like, here, let me take your money and let me tell you what I'm going to do for you, but not actually ever do anything.
Wow,
and so,
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember those people.
So that was really stressful. And from that, I'm like, okay, and so I will say too that when you first start a business, it can be very scary. I had a very successful corporate career for 20 years, but it's very different when you're on your own and you're the boss and you're making all the decisions. And I basically had to learn how to have a voice and to grow a spine and treat this like it's my baby, and I'm protecting it and nurturing it, and so that really is kind of how it all has evolved.
That's a lot of growing in a short amount of time, right?
Yes.
from being on the front lines in a work environment where you were kind of traveling the world doing a lot of different things, and then but always kind of reporting to somebody.
Yes.
And now you're telling the company where to go and yourself what to do. But also one of the things that you mentioned earlier was connecting with people, right? So making connections with people, and I think with what you're doing, you're kind of sharing your story, and you're sharing the background as to how this happened and why it's important to you, and because people know why you're doing this and how you got here, that's a very compelling story and product for people, right? Because I think there's people in the same boat, like you said. How many millions of people in the U.S. probably have dealt with something similar? And that's something they can latch on to. And so you've been able to tell the story quite a bit. And I think that, tell me about some of the places you've been as far as talking to people and sharing this.
So we've gotten a lot of good press, actually. So last May, the Huffington Post picked up the story and published it, which was really great because, that reaches a global audience. So that was amazing. And we got a lot of good feedback from that. And then this month, actually, Mantra Magazine did a feature on us and our products, and is huge because, again, they're in every major retailer, plus they have a huge online presence. So you're talking hundreds of thousands of people who are already in that healthy mindset and are looking for something more. And so that was huge, and I'm like so excited about that. And the biggest thing is this woman, her name's Kate Butler, she approached me, I think last September, and if you've ever heard of Jack Canfield in the Chicken Soup books, he is her mentor. And she has a book series called Women Who, and it's women who influence, women who do these different things. And the third book is the one that I'm in. I'm one of the featured authors, which is really amazing. And she because it's the third book and the first two were bestsellers, this is a guaranteed bestseller, she now gets to pick and choose who she wants in the book. And I was like, wow, what a huge honor, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, just tell your story. So wrote the story, submitted it, and she's like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you know, send back the edits. No edits, literally. And I'm like, okay, yay. She's like, no, you really did a good job of telling the story. So it was so cool. And so it takes a lot to publish a book. I mean,
yeah,
even
it's quite
on
a process to publish a book.
and even on this accelerated schedule and having everything pretty much done for us, it's still a lot to it. But the book comes out next week on the 27th.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
and people can find that online and Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon is where it's being sold. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and I mean, I can sell it too. I probably won't go down that road.
Sure.
But, you know,
You have a lot of things on your plate.
I know, I got too much, right? It's like, okay, now I love book culture.
Maybe you can have a few with you and you can have
yeah. And that's kind of the plan, yeah, to give some away and do that. But it's really cool because my story is one of 30 stories by all these amazing people and the different things that they've been through and where they've gotten to now. And I would say that's the biggest thing I want to get across to people is, you know, no matter what you're going through, don't give up. There's always light at the end of that tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the body is an amazing thing. It can heal itself, and you can help it heal itself.
Yeah.
And so that's probably been the biggest thing that I've gotten out of this.
Yeah, and your outlook, right? Yeah, you were probably, it was probably really hard to go through all the medical stuff.
Really
and keep
hard.
pushing forward no matter what happened to you. Because a lot of people have anxiety, depression, all these things occur during that whole time period. And it's hard to get back out of that.
It's really hard. And I went through all of that. I mean, I'm not going to act like I was just skipping through the daisies like it was, you know, fun. You know? I mean, the number of times I've been cut and poked and prodded and blood, I feel like I've been sucked dry by vampires, you know? And I did have some really dark days. And there were days where I would have to like give myself a reason to just not give up.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the point of this? And you know, at one point when my liver was failing, I mean, I thought I was going to die. I mean, they put me on the top of the transplant list, and this happened in a matter of days. And
oh yeah, that's a fast process. To go.
And they're like, we don't know what's happening. Oh my God! And so they did it because I was young and otherwise doing okay. They're like, all right, you're on the top of the list. Great. Within 2 weeks, I was taken off the list because my body literally started healing itself. It was like, and the doctors were like, we don't like to use the word miracle, but we're just going to throw it out there.
We'll take it. We'll take it, yeah.
And so that was kind of like the last major thing that happened that made me think, okay, I don't and didn't sit around a lot going, why me, and feeling sorry for myself. But I finally asked, why? Why did all of this happen to me? What is the purpose in this? What is the greater reason for all of this? And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to do something with this. And so that's when the whole thing started with, you know, me figuring out, you know, products for myself, but then going, okay, there are at least 50 million people in this country that could be helped. If they never buy a bottle of lotion, you know, of course I'd be sad, but part of the mission is to educate them and to let them know that there are answers out there. You know, you just have to know where to look.
So what about like, what different types of products are you making right now?
So I have face and body products. So for the face, I have a moisturizer, a serum, and an eye cream, and 2 face washes. And then for the body, it's a body scrub, a body wash, and a body lotion. And I'm actually working on developing some new products now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a face mask, a face exfoliator, lip balm, because everybody wants lip balm. Everybody does. And then since we're actually launching in India this year, men there are much more into skincare than men in a lot of other places in the world. And so
that's interesting. I would have never guessed this.
I didn't know either. And so the distributor was like, you know, would you be willing to develop a men's line too?
Okay.
So that's on the it's on the burner.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's
that's
a whole lot. And kind of the idea is to launch a new product like every 6 months because a lot does go into it. I mean,
so is it just you right now that's doing the product development piece? And then how do you test these things? So this is
well, I mean, you can have a lab look at them and make sure that your preservative system is working and you're not getting mold of bacteria and all that.
Yeah,
so that's that. And as far as like clinical trials, no. I mean, that costs millions of dollars.
It's very expensive.
I can't do that. But what I have done is I have great customer reviews where they say, this product has done this for me. And like this one girl's a redhead, and she's had red blotchy skin her entire life. She thought she was just gonna have to deal with it. She started using the green tea and cucumber face wash, and she goes, oh my God. I mean, she's like, my skin is perfect. She goes, the blotchiness and the redness is gone, and holy cow. And when I created that face wash, that I wasn't going for that, it was just a really gentle everyday face wash. And I was like, and I hear this from other people, like adults who have severe acne, which is inflammation. They use this and it's gone. And the other face products are helping with the scarring, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
That's so interesting, because it seems very logical to me, right?
Yeah.
We both have a science background, and so when I think about we're putting these products, soaps, cleansers, whatever they are, on our skin, on our face, and these things are happening. It's pretty logical to think that these things are causing a problem, right?
Yes.
And then think back on how Native people, they had to have kept themselves clean somehow. How are they doing that? And I think that's kind of where you've gone, right?
Yes,
You've brought these natural products back in, right? And so that makes sense as far as your name and where you're going and the push. But there's also, you're talking about the demand is growing, right?
Yeah.
Like this is an industry, the natural product world is growing because there's a lot of people, like you said, that are having problems that are getting great results from this, right? So what are those numbers looking like on that?
Oh my gosh. So, and the reason I know this is because we have been putting these statistics together for a company. So the global skincare market is 265 billion. The US is 65 billion of that. So it's a big chunk.
Yeah.
And of that 65 billion, last year, 2017, the numbers were 13 billion for natural and organic products.
Okay.
And that is supposed to have double-digit growth through 2020. That's as far as it's been projected. Who knows after that? I'm sure, because, like we've talked about before, as people are becoming more aware of what they're putting in their mouths and on their bodies. And so I don't see why that market isn't going to continue to explode.
Yeah.
And so in this country, it's kind of interesting. It's different geographic areas of the country are more, I don't like to use the word awake, but they're more aware of things. So like California and the West Coast, pockets of the East Coast, Colorado, these people are very, very aware, and they're hungry for these kinds of products, and they're very open to it. And so that's who we're targeting. And also the 50+ million people in this country that have autoimmune diseases, that's who we're targeting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these people, and 75% of those people are women. And, as women, we are exposed to like more than 500 toxins per day, including gluten, that we're putting on our skin. And, people say you don't absorb this, you don't absorb that. Well, you do. And while the absorption rate average over your body is 60%, on your face it's 100%. And women slather most of the stuff on their face.
Yeah.
So, and if you're not getting it through your skin, you can get it through your eyes, you can breathe it in, you can get it in your mouth.
Everything's like a membrane, right? That's what it's passing through.
So the exposure is crazy, and so the need is huge, and the opportunity and the market is huge. It's not going away.
That's so interesting. Sometimes we don't think about this, and oftentimes people think, well, why is it that higher rates of women are seeing these things, and then you go through all those skincare products, and I've seen those charts of when they talk about that, the numbers, right?
Yes.
How many different chemicals are going on your skin on the average woman, and so a product like this could help, but I think that also there's so many other products now too that could complement yours, and if everybody's kind of going that route, hopefully maybe we can start to see people get healthier better, right?
I really
maybe
do.
That's the trend. And so the question becomes: is it cheaper to make these other products, or is it there's a money making machine out there that's pushing all these things out there?
Yes. So products like mine are actually very expensive to make.
Absolutely.
Even for a large scale manufacturer, it costs a lot more, because some of the ingredients that I'm using are, everything's plant based. Everything there and cruelty-free. We're a cruelty-free certified company. There's no animal testing, no animal byproducts. We don't even use beeswax or honey because it's from an animal, and we want to keep the vegan community happy.
Yes. Okay.
And which is a big it's a big part of what we're doing, and so it costs a lot. Shea butter is going to cost a lot more than petroleum or mineral oil.
Yes.
Like hundreds of times more expensive. You're talking pennies to dollars per bottle of moisturizer or lotion. And So what people have to recognize is you're paying for what you're getting what you pay for. So if you go to your big box store and you buy a big global mainstream brand, but you turn around and look at the label and look what's in it, there's nothing in there. They might splash some shea butter in there. They might splash something natural in there, like argan oil, because that's a big thing now. But everything else in it is nasty, nasty stuff. And it costs pennies to make those big giant bottles. If I sold a 32-ounce bottle of lotion, it would probably cost you $100 retail.
That's so crazy, right? And you would think, I feel like our society is a little backwards sometimes. Yeah. It's like why water costs you $1 or something for a liter, but you can buy 2 liters of some type of soda for 99 cents, right? It's kind of backwards.
It is backwards.
Right? But I'm hoping that we are slowly changing things and going back.
I think so. Yeah.
But you're saying India, so you're going into India, which has a massive population.
It does.
Right?
Over 1 billion people.
So, and this is a unique thing because that's not a market I would have expected.
Yeah.
But also it's unique in a way that there's some different growing pains in going global.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because like the U.S., the FDA does not regulate beauty products. It regulates drugs. And beauty products are not considered drugs unless you start making claims, and then it's a whole other thing. But other countries are so far ahead of us in terms of their food and their self-care products. It's crazy. And in the US, only 12 ingredients, maybe 13 ingredients have been banned for use in beauty products. In Europe, there's over 1,300. And most other countries are adopting that. The thing about India is you do have to go through their version of the FDA, and you have to register every single product. It has to be proven that it's safe, that there's none of these banned ingredients in it, and that it's cruelty-free. So they don't allow any product that's
that makes sense.
they don't. The products have to be vegan as far as no animal products in there. And there can be no animal testing. So I mean, they're really big on that. I mean, India is mostly a vegetarian society, and I mean, the holy cow. I mean, they give a lot of credence to these animals, and so it's really important to them. And when you go global too, there's logistics, there's different laws of different countries and labeling requirements and so much stuff. And so it's a huge step for us, but India is actually a logical step because, for example, we've been talking to somebody in Europe. To break into Europe is not impossible, but it's pretty close. It's because of just the way things are. India is a wide open market. The middle class is growing. I think the middle class now is over 300 million, and it's growing. So their middle class is almost the entire size of the U.S. population. And people have disposable income, and for them, selling points, natural products, gluten-free, and American-made, because they associate that with quality, and their quality is really important to them. And so we meet a lot of the criteria of the average Indian consumer, and there's only a handful of foreign brands over there right now, and there's only a handful of domestic brands, and a lot of them make claims that just simply aren't true. And so we see a huge opportunity to come in and educate and provide these amazing products. And Kudarat is a Sanskrit name. India, Hindi, Sanskrit, all that. So there's a real connection there. And then I have a strong connection to the Indian culture too. So I'm kind of like a bridge between the West and the East, and so it's a win-win.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Both, right? There's a whole lot of growth happening for you, and then so you are pretty much making these products on your own, and now things are starting to take off, and it's not going to be you anymore. So you have to now figure out how you can meet the demand. Yeah. Right. Tell me about that.
So through one of my business partners, she introduced me to this guy named Bob, and I'll just leave it at that. Bob's amazing. He has a long and varied career at places like L'Oreal and Bath and Body Works. So he came from the beauty product world, but he had a desire to work with small independent brands up to the huge brands that were focused on the natural and organic scene. So he started his own company. It's called IPG. It's in Utah, and so that's who our manufacturer will be once we're ready to scale up to that level. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that was a really cool thing that happened. And as you grow, people start coming to you. Please let us be your label
Sure.
supplier, your packaging
Sure.
supplier. Yeah. So, and that's what's happening now. I mean, we get tons of emails every day, people saying, "Hey, look at us, look at us."
Yeah.
And so it's a good problem to have.
Well, that's a good thing for you too, because that's going to take a lot of pressure
Yes.
off of you and free up a lot of your time
Yes.
to really be out there and be the spokesperson for your
Yeah.
brand, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to only help push that.
And that's the main role that everybody on the team sees for me. They're like, "You're the face of the company. We want you out there speaking on panels, writing books, doing whatever. Let us handle the rest."
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just not there, but we will.
Yeah.
Because right now it is a little bit like drinking water through a fire hose.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is so crazy because you started off and it was. And so sometimes people see this company, well, you haven't been around that long, but really what we're talking about is probably the last 10 years, right? It's been this 10-year process between the initial concept to get to this point where you're on the verge of this big expansion globally, you're on the verge of this big expansion as far as production goes, and you're getting a lot of exposure in some great places, right? Like the Mantra magazine, which everybody needs to go buy that.
It's
that
amazing.
magazine.
Yeah, go buy it.
So these are huge, but you've learned a lot along the way, and I feel like you've grown a lot along the way,
definitely.
right? And you've seen yourself change. And one of the things that you've done, I think, is that you figured out how to put yourself out there, no matter what. And we had a brief talk about this, but no matter what the time is, or if you have a thought and you have something you want to say, you're just putting it out there and it's happening, whether that's through Facebook Live, Instagram story, or live, or anything, right? Because I don't know, I feel like we live in this world sometimes that can be so fabricated, maybe, like it's kind of fake out there. And so having a genuine conversation where you're just talking to the people who are following you, or anybody who's willing to listen, right? And you talk, so tell me, you did this one recently, you were telling me about, you just got back from Colorado and you're out there, right?
Yeah, so last week was spring break, and I was literally in my hot tub during a blizzard, and I was with my daughter-in-law, and we were laughing, and I'm like, you know what, this is a perfect time to do an Instagram Live. So I went on, nobody could see anything, it was total dark, but they could hear the wind and the snow, my hair was frozen, it was hilarious. And I basically just said this was like the ideal time to really connect with nature and just let loose and just embrace it and be part of it, and how it was a reminder to really connect with yourself and take time out to just shut everything else off and out and really just be in the moment. And it was crazy. I mean, it got all kinds of hits, and people were like, "We can't see you, but we can hear you. This is awesome," and blah, blah, blah. And so even though I am not the best at connecting every single day, which in this day and age you need to. I mean, you do. But when I do, it gets a lot of good, I guess, people are really, they really respond to it, which is really great. And so that is one of the biggest things for me. Like the first time I ever did a Facebook Live, I was a train wreck. I was an absolute wreck.
I'll start somewhere.
I know, I'm like, oh my God, and people were like, "Oh, that was really great, you need to do more of this." And so I guess the hurdle you have to get past is that people are not going to eat you, and the ones that do, just ignore them, because they hate everybody. You're just another person to pick on. But when you put yourself in front of a camera, there's a lot of insecurities. Oh my God, do I look overweight? Is my makeup right? Oh, is the angle right? Is the hair, everything, and all this crazy stuff goes through your head. So I would say, as far as growth, that's probably been one of the biggest areas for me to grow, is to just put myself out there anyway, you know, and say, this is who I am,
And people can latch onto that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it comes across as genuine, right? And it is, because
Yeah.
sometimes you're in your car, sometimes you're
Yeah,
there,
and I have
sometimes
been.
wherever
Like, are you
you are.
driving when you're doing this? I'm like, I'm gonna stop light.
It's real, and I think people need to understand that it's never, nothing's ever perfect,
No,
right? We can't
never.
ever make sure anything's perfect.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen that
No.
way. It's just like the business, right? There's so many hang-ups along the way and
Oh my
obstacles,
gosh,
right?
yes.
That you run into, and there's never it's never a cookie cutter story,
Never.
right?
Never. And it's funny because when you see on social media all the time, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, all these overnight successes, they are not overnight successes. You're seeing the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
It probably took them 10 years.
Absolutely.
To become that overnight success.
Absolutely.
And there's no get quick scam. There's no,
Right.
you're not going to be lugging in, bags of cash the next day. It doesn't work that way. It's a long process. And I would tell anybody that's ever interested in doing it is that every day you have to have that you're going to stick to this no matter what gets thrown at you, because even when you're making $10 billion, there's still going to be problems.
Sure.
They're not going to go away. There's going to be bigger, a lot bigger. So in order to be successful, you cannot quit, you cannot stop, no matter what.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've been telling people here sometimes is when they come in here, you have to commit to consistency.
Yeah, you do.
You have to commit to yourself, and you have to commit to being consistent with whatever it is, and that's how you get good at anything. That's how you get anything moving, right?
Yeah.
If you do anything, sometimes this, and you never stick with anything, you'll never get very far.
You won't.
Yeah.
You won't.
But we see that often. I think this is a society that's become very instant gratification, right? They look for instant gratification, and it takes a lot of hard work and dedication to really get the wheel turning.
It does. And one of the things I found out, and this is getting all philosophical and stuff, but like the really big successful people in the world, like, what's his name, Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs or whoever, they turn down 97 to 99% of opportunities. And these are great opportunities. These are ones that anybody would grab onto. And they only pick 1 to 3 at a time.
Sure.
Because you can't, and this is one thing I learned early when I switched from a career to focusing on this. You cannot give all of your time and energy to everything.
Right.
And so if you spread yourself too thin, and this is for people in life in general, nothing is going to be great or even good, because you're trying to be all things and do all things, and you can't. So you have to pick something and stick to it. And that's the key to success.
Yeah, you have to set those boundaries. I think that's really hard, though, especially when you're trying to get something off the ground, because
it's so hard.
You're looking at your livelihood, you're looking at how can I at least alleviate some of the stress, because it always feels like this pressure and this burden that is bearing down, and you really want to get things rolling fast, but then you have to balance family, and you have to balance finding an income and making sure you have an income,
that's tough.
But keeping the business running, and all the little pieces in the business, and things come up daily that can take your attention away from what you are really trying to accomplish.
And I would say you have to treat it like a job. You work between these hours. You do not work on these days, like weekends or whatever, and you have to stick to it, because if you don't, everybody else is going to invade on that time, and then you're burned out. And you really have to, I say, you really have to dedicate focus time, even if that's 30 minutes sitting down for supper with your family every day. Because like me, I have a 17-year-old son. He's his own person now. So to corral him in for that 30 minutes is a big deal. It's like connecting and. Self-care, work out, do yoga, meditate, do whatever. You have to. And one thing I've learned from this is when I let all of that slide, because I've become so consumed and obsessed with the business, I get sick, I start falling apart, mentally, emotionally, physically, I'll start putting on weight, and I'll feel inflammation, and I'm like, no. So balance is the key. It really is.
Yeah, it's really hard. I think it's really hard. So that's one of the things I struggle with. It's almost like you got to put the phone down, the technology away, get away from it for a while. But it's a struggle, because it's constantly going off.
Yeah,
it's like constantly. And there's a point where you got to decide, okay, it's going to be there. I can kill it right now, and it's going to be there when I come back to it. But it's so hard to do it sometimes. But we got to get better at it. I think everybody can be better at that, right?
I think so.
And that's like sharing that connection, where it's what you're trying to do, even though it's kind of crazy, because you try to make that connection with other people through media sources and things like that.
Which is how we have to do it this day and age.
It is.
It's
crazy. In that world now. But even meeting people face to face is great, because you're out there talking to people, and you've been on shows and done interviews with people. And making that connection individually just keeps spreading the word, It
does. And we've been to a couple of trade shows too, which when you go to those, you have to realize it's an investment. You're not gonna make money. In fact, it's a money sink. It's a money loser because you pay a lot of money.
It's really for the exposure,
It is.
right?
It's totally for the exposure because people come up to you and they're like, "What's your story?" It's like, "Oh, great, another moisturizer, another lotion, blah blah blah." Especially when you're at a beauty show and there's 100 other brands.
Yeah, you're with everybody else.
Yeah, it's like, what makes you so special? And so Anna, my business partner, she would literally shove me out front because I'd be like in the back going, "Oh my God, all these people." But I would just talk to them and say, "This is the story," and they're like, "Oh wow." So yeah, the connection is really, really important. It really is because ultimately they make decisions a lot of times from an emotional place. It's not a bad thing. It's just how we're wired. And so it's like, okay. So you have to connect to that emotional sensitivity or sensibility and say, okay, this is only to help you. And I hope that I come across that way as genuine and, not just trying to sell a bottle of lotion. Because, I mean, that's part of it, but it's a much bigger piece to it, is just making that connection.
And I think that's how you build brand loyalty,
Yes,
right?
you
Like
do.
these people have a deep connection to you and what you're doing and the core values of your product and why you do what you do. Which is interesting you brought that up. It just brought to mind, like, there's a lot of successful people in this world in different arenas, right? And all of them seem to do that really well.
Yes.
Because people don't forget that emotional connection. There's an emotional tie that occurs between that exchange. And that kind of imprints on people.
And I would say a big part of it too is you have to understand who your core audience is. It's the same thing in your own life. You cannot be all things to all people. So same thing with a product or a business. Some people like iPhones and some people like Samsung. I mean, it's the same thing in skincare. Some person's going to like this, some person's going to like that. But what is the core? What is it that you're trying to connect with? Who is it that you're trying to connect with? How are you going to serve that person? Because there are just people out there who just don't care. I mean, and you're never going to change their mind.
Right, you're not.
Yeah.
You have to forget them and focus on who are the people that want what I got.
Yeah, and that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And it's really connecting with those people. But the challenge that it's even more of a challenge in this day and age than it was, say, even 10 years ago, is the whole instant gratification. You have to be on Facebook and Instagram. They want you on Instagram like 3 times a day or Twitter 3 times a day.
Every 4 hours.
No, I can't do that. I mean, I'm like, I cannot come up with that kind of content. Right? Yeah, I'm like, it takes hours to do an Instagram post that's meaningful, and it's like, okay, come on.
It's like this balance of having a quality product versus the volume of product, right? And I have a hard time with that too because, we hear the same thing and I don't have time for that.
No.
I just don't. And to make a video that's great or a photo that's great and write a great caption for it, I mean, maybe once or twice a day, and that's about it.
And I mean, I've gotten to the point, like, if there's pictures of me on Instagram, I mean, I'm trying to be me. I mean, because most of what people out there, their hair is perfect, they've had professional makeup, their outfit, everything's been staged. I'm like,
yeah.
Here's me,
Well, that's what we talk about. Like, people, I feel like, are getting smarter in a lot of things, and the fitness arena is definitely a place where I feel like people get lied to a lot. A lot. Yeah. And what's the reality? What's happening? And so just to be genuine, it takes longer. I think it definitely takes longer to build your giant following or your loyal customer base, or whatever you want to call it. But those people aren't going to leave once they're there. Not. Right? They're bought in.
Yeah. I mean, just like, I could go out right now and pay somebody and I could buy 10,000 followers on Instagram.
Right, yes.
And I'll probably lose all of them next week. Because, so the audience that we do have, we're just under 2,000, but that's what we've organically grown ourselves. I mean, and so that's a huge deal. And I mean, and you're right, especially about the fitness world. I mean, we do get lied to a lot. And it's like, look, you can look like me in 2 months. No, you can't.
Right.
You're a professional athlete that works out 8 hours a day and probably has a dietitian and all your food cooked for you and fed to you and all the exact no, that's not real.
Yeah, and there's a lot of photoshopping and filters happening and things of that nature. And oftentimes people come in here and it's hard for them to hear the reality of how long it's going to take. It's just like we talked about at the beginning. Nothing happens overnight. Everything's a process. So embrace the process and be consistent with that process.
It makes it much more pleasant if you do it like that. Because I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'll come in here and like Monday, it was like the worst workout ever. But I mean,
that you powered through.
I was like, what is wrong with me? Like,
We're going on vacation for a week too, right?
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God. So, yeah, but after it was over, it was like, okay, I could keep beating myself up, or I can say, you know what, I got through it, you know, and so that was like, all right, let's focus on that, you know, and it's only doing myself good, I'm not doing harm, so.
Yeah, day by day, task by task, you cross it off your list. Where can people find you next? What's next for you?
Oh gosh, okay, so the next thing that's happening is obviously the book's coming out next week, so that's a big deal. But we have a website, so it's kudaratskincare.com, and we're also on Instagram, it's Kudarat Skincare, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and everything is Kudarat Skincare.
Oh great,
So,
you have all matching,
it's all matching, yeah, we did that to keep it simple, yeah.
And then we'll put all those names and the link to the website in the description for this VCast. What about for you? Are you doing any interviews coming up? Anything?
Yeah, I actually got this group called the Clean Hub actually contacted me last week and said, hey, go ahead and schedule, you know, the podcast with us. And I'm like, what podcast? That was really awesome. It just kind of showed up out of nowhere. And I'm trying to think, what is the next thing we have? We have a lot of things going on right now behind the scenes that I can't really talk about. But there's some more events and stuff that we're trying to get to. It's just things are in the works, and so I don't want to say we're going to be doing this or that or the other, and then it not be out. So, or for other reasons.
There's things that you just can't talk about this because it's ill.
Yeah, but I would say too, one of the big things I'm going to be focusing on is blogging more, just because that's a really good way to get stuff out and to educate people in really nice snippets.
And that's going to be on the website?
That'll be on the website, and and we'll do some cross posting with social media too, so people will know, hey, the blog's out, you know, go read it. So
that's all good stuff, and I think that you are doing a lot of great things, and it's going to take off. It's going to happen. I know you're working hard to make it work. So they can follow you too, so so they can find you on Instagram, and they can find you if they want to on Facebook. Maybe.
I would say my personal profile on Instagram I haven't touched probably in a year, just because I haven't had time. But I'm on Facebook probably every day as myself.
So they can follow you there.
They can follow me there.
And the company. But that's pretty good. So any other, and you mentioned all the products that are coming out, so you have several new products that are coming out, and you're looking at maybe 6 months down the road? Yeah,
I would say that. And one thing I didn't mention is, so CBD is a big thing now, and it's legal, it's not pot.
Right.
It's not the psychoactive part of it. But it has amazing anti-inflammatory qualities and other amazing qualities. And so we are going to be introducing a separate CBD skincare line as well.
Great.
Yeah, and that'll be to a very specific target audience, West Coast and Colorado, just because of for logistical issues. That's where we'll start first. But so that's pretty exciting too.
So look for those products coming out from Wendi and her brand, your Kudarat Skincare. A lot of exciting things happening. Follow them, go check out their website. If you like what you see here, subscribe to our videocast channel. There'll be more content coming your way. If you want to follow Ohana Fitness on Instagram, it's HTX_Ohana_strong. If you want to follow me, it's JTINOUE on everything. You can find me there.